The night was thick with darkness as I drove down the deserted highway, the only illumination coming from the glow of my headlights slicing through the obsidian void. The soft hum of the engine and the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers were the only sounds that accompanied me on this journey through the lonely stretch of road. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale against the leather, as I navigated the winding path ahead. I had always been drawn to the mystery of the night, the way it concealed secrets in its shadows and whispered tales of the unknown. But tonight, as I ventured deeper into the heart of the darkness, a chill crawled up my spine, and my fascination began to blend with a growing sense of unease. The radio crackled with static, every station a blur of indistinguishable noise. I sighed, reaching to turn it off, but my hand froze mid-air when a voice suddenly cut through the static. It was a faint, raspy voice, like a whisper carried on the wind. The words were incomprehensible, but a cold dread settled in the pit of my stomach, and I quickly switched off the radio, heart racing. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard, 2:47 a.m. The witching hour, they called it, a time when the boundary between the living and the supernatural was said to be at its thinnest. I shook off the unease, chiding myself for succumbing to irrational thoughts. Yet, the feeling of being watched persisted, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck that refused to fade. As I continued down the road, a dense fog began to roll in, wrapping its tendrils around the car like ghostly fingers. My visibility diminished to mere feet, and I slowed down to a crawl, my eyes straining to pierce through the mist. Shapes seemed to materialize and dissolve, shadows dancing at the periphery of my vision. And then, a figure emerged from the fog. A woman, dressed in a flowing white dress, stood at the edge of the road. My heart jumped to my throat, and I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the pavement. The woman turned to face me, her pale face framed by long, dark hair that hung in wet tendrils. I rolled down my window, my voice shaky as I called out to her. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She didn't reply, her gaze fixed on me with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. And then, with slow, deliberate movements, she began to approach the car. Every step she took seemed to echo in the stillness of the night, each one resonating with a growing sense of dread. As she drew nearer, I could see her eyes, two dark orbs that seemed to penetrate my very soul. A surge of panic seized me, and I fumbled to roll up the window, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The woman reached the side of the car and pressed her hand against the glass, her cold fingers leaving a chilling imprint. "Please let me in," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody that reverberated in the confines of the car. "No, I can't," I stammered, my voice trembling. "I'm sorry, but I can't." Her eyes bore into mine, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. And then, with a jarring jolt, she let out a blood-curdling scream that shattered the silence of the night. The sound was unearthly, a wail that seemed to reverberate from beyond the realm of the living. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, the tires screeching as the car lurched forward. The woman's scream echoed in my ears, fading only as the distance between us grew. My heart raced, and I dared a glance in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her chasing after me through the fog. But there was nothing, just the empty road and the dissipating mist. I drove for what felt like an eternity, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The world outside my car was a blur of darkness, a void that seemed to swallow everything in its path. Finally, the fog began to thin, and the road ahead stretched into clarity. I let out a shaky sigh of relief, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The worst was behind me, or so I thought. As I approached a bend in the road, I noticed a figure standing at the edge. The same woman, her white dress billowing in the wind. Panic surged anew as I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt just inches from her. She stood there, her eyes locked on mine, a cruel smile curling her lips. My heart pounded, and I shifted the gear into reverse, desperate to put distance between us. But as I looked back through the rearview mirror, the woman was still there, her figure growing smaller but never disappearing from view. No matter how far I drove, she remained at the same distance, her presence a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurked in the night. The road seemed to stretch on endlessly, and I felt as if I were trapped in a nightmarish loop, forever pursued by the woman in white. Hours blended into one another, the darkness a relentless companion that refused to release its grip. The road stretched out before me, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the heart of the dense forest. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the surroundings. I glanced at the dashboard clock. 1:30 a.m. The world was cloaked in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the engine and the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers. The radio played a haunting tune, its melancholic melody adding to the sense of isolation. I had always enjoyed driving at night. The empty roads and the tranquil darkness were a welcome escape from the chaos of the day. But tonight, as I wound my way through the twisting path, an inexplicable unease began to gnaw at me. The forest seemed to press in on either side of the road, the trees looming like sentinels of the night. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles turning white. The road seemed endless, the bends and turns disorienting in the dim light. I chided myself for being paranoid, for allowing my imagination to run wild in the stillness. Yet, the feeling of being watched persisted, a prickling sensation that crawled up the back of my neck. As if on cue, the radio crackled with static, the haunting tune replaced by an unsettling silence. I frowned, reaching to change the station, but the static only grew louder, filling the car like an oppressive presence. And then, a voice emerged from the white noise, a voice that sounded distant and distorted, like a whisper carried on the wind. My heart quickened as I strained to make out the words. They were disjointed, fragments of sentences that sent a shiver down my spine. I turned off the radio, the static fading into nothingness. The forest seemed to close in around me, and I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down. I glanced at the clock again, 2 a.m. The chill in the air was palpable, and I shivered despite the warmth of the car's interior. A sense of urgency gripped me, and I accelerated, eager to put distance between me and the oppressive atmosphere of the forest. As I drove, the road seemed to narrow, the trees leaning in as if trying to touch the car. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, flickering like phantoms in the moonlight. I shook my head, trying to dispel the unease that had settled over me. It was just my imagination, I told myself. And then up ahead, I saw a figure standing by the side of the road. My foot instinctively eased off the gas pedal, heart racing. As I approached, I could make out the silhouette of a woman, her form illuminated by the glow of the headlights. She wore a flowing dress that billowed in the wind, her hair cascading around her shoulders like a waterfall of darkness. I slowed down, rolling down the window just a crack. "Do you need help?" I called out, my voice barely more than a whisper. The woman turned to face me, her eyes gleaming in the darkness. "Please," she said, her voice carrying a haunting urgency. "I need a ride." Against my better judgment, I unlocked the passenger door. The woman climbed in, and a chill seemed to settle in the car with her. Her eyes were a deep, unnerving shade of black, and they seemed to bore into mine as if searching for something hidden beneath the surface. "Thank you," she said, her voice a strange mixture of gratitude and sorrow. I nodded, my heart still racing. "Where are you headed?" "Anywhere," she replied, her gaze fixed straight ahead. The road stretched on, the silence broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. The woman sat in the passenger seat, her presence a heavy weight that seemed to fill the car. The forest outside seemed to blur into a sea of shadows, the outlines of trees merging into an indistinct mass. As we drove, the woman's gaze never wavered from the road ahead. I stole glances at her, unable to shake the feeling that something about her was off. Her fingers were unnaturally pale, almost translucent, and her dress seemed to ripple as if it were made of smoke rather than fabric. "Are you okay?" I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. She turned to me, her black eyes locking onto mine. "I've been waiting a long time for this," she said, her voice carrying a sense of longing. I frowned, a cold realization creeping over me. "What do you mean?" But before she could reply, a dense fog began to roll in, enveloping the car in a suffocating embrace. My visibility dwindled to almost nothing, and I strained to keep the car on the road. Panic clawed at me as the fog seemed to seep into the car, chilling the air and distorting the world outside. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the fog lifted, revealing a scene of nightmarish horror. The road ahead was no longer familiar. It twisted and turned in unnatural ways, leading to a destination I couldn't comprehend. The forest around us had grown denser, the trees looming like towering giants, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that I was no longer in control. The woman in the passenger seat turned to me, her gaze unrelenting. "You're here now," she said, her voice echoing with a chilling finality. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the pavement. The car skidded to a stop, and I turned to the woman, my voice trembling. "What is this?" What's happening? She smiled, a smile that held no warmth, no humanity. You offered me a ride, she said, and now you're trapped. A sense of dread settled over me, and I scrambled to unbuckle my seatbelt. I needed to get out of the car, to escape whatever nightmare I had stumbled into. But as I reached for the door handle, I felt an icy grip on my wrist. The woman's fingers cold as death. You can't leave, she whispered, her voice a disembodied murmur. I fought against her hold, panic welling up within me. Let me go. But her grip only tightened, and her eyes bore into mine with a terrible intensity. You're part of this now. You're part of the endless night. Desperation surged through me as I struggled to break free. The world around me seemed to twist and distort, the very fabric of reality warping in on itself. And then, with a jarring jolt, everything went black. When I awoke, I was back on the road, the car parked on the shoulder. The moon still hung low in the sky, the forest still pressed in on all sides. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 1:30 a.m. It was as if time had rewound, as if I had never left. But the woman was gone. I stumbled out of the car, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was heavy with an oppressive stillness, and the forest seemed to watch me with 1,000 unblinking eyes. I glanced back at the car, half expecting to see the woman in the passenger seat, her black eyes fixed on mine. But there was nothing, just the empty road and the suffocating darkness. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that I'm still trapped in that nightmarish loop, forever driving through the darkness, forever pursued by an otherworldly presence. The forest holds its secrets, and the road stretches on endlessly, a reminder that some paths are best left untraveled, and some terrors are best left undisturbed.